Well, as you can tell, I have a guest again today as we are talking about being deacons. Philip West. Philip has been a deacon here. In August, it will be 20 years.
That is hard to believe.
You don't feel much more than 20 years old, do you?
I won't say that.
You won't say that, okay.
I won't say that.
But 20 years, and I look back to see when Jeff and Ricky were first ordained as deacons 25 years ago, and then it was you and Randy Turner and Kevin Vance.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that, and it's hard to believe it's been 20 years. Mm-hmm. We've known each other a long time. You know that?
A long time.
A long time. You and Belinda were dating when we first came.
We were. That's
so
right.
I've seen you, the wedding and children, and now with Caleb, now there's children starting to leave. So
that means most of what happens in my life is your fault.
It's my fault. At least I was part of that.
Well, okay, we'll say that.
I was part of that.
We won't
fault.
give you the blame.
Not all of it. Not all of it. Yeah. But let's just start off with the whole idea of you've always gone to church your whole life. You're like me. You were taken to church. You didn't know any different. That's just the way it was. You almost have to tell the story about what your mom said, the kind of girl to pick out. Don't get this, this, and this.
Well, if you really want me to say that.
I really want you to say, go ahead.
When I went to college, my mom said, now I know you're probably going to meet somebody when you get to college. She said, I only have 3 requests. Please don't let her be a Democrat. Please don't let her be a U of L fan. And please don't let her be a Baptist. So when I met Belinda, I was like, well, Mom, she's a UK fan. And she was like, oh, man.
She's UK fan. So.
That means the other 2. So we compromised. We switched her on one. She switched me on the other.
I got tickled when I heard her talk about that. But it's just neat to think back over the years and how things have changed and all. You and I both were oldest of 3.
Yeah.
You had 2 more brothers. I had a brother and a sister. Mm-hmm. So being the oldest, I don't know what that does exactly to us, but somehow we've learned to get through with humor. Or at least we think it's funny. We're convinced it's funny. Our wives are a little bit, not so much.
Absolutely. And get the eye roll.
And get the eye roll and all that.
Yeah.
So Belinda's come to this church her whole life.
Absolutely.
That she's never been anywhere else. Except in college, but she never joined anywhere. When we were talking about adding deacons and when you got the phone call asking if we could come and talk with you about it, what was your initial thought?
I think my first thought was they've got the wrong guy.
They got the wrong guy.
There must be a mistake.
Yeah.
And I don't remember exactly how all of that happened. I think Jeff Caudell caught me one Sunday after church and talked to me a little bit, and then I think maybe Sean Estes called or came by or something, and just kind of planted those seeds. And I just thought, I think they must be confused. This is, I felt like a kid. I mean, I kind of was.
Yeah.
I'm over that now. Don't feel like that anymore. But I did think, I don't think they, they see something that I don't think is really me, and that's probably not. They'll come to their senses. I think
they'll come to their senses. Yeah, they'll know this is not the idea.
Yeah.
So when you talk with Belinda about it, because you're like me, you grew up in a different denomination.
Yeah, multiple.
Yeah. So both you and I, we came to the Baptist belief from different types. I mean, Christian, yes, but different denominations.
Yeah.
So a deacon in one church may be different than a deacon in another church.
Absolutely.
So did you and Belinda talk a little bit about it?
We did, a little bit about what it meant. Now, that's a long time ago to remember, but I do remember some conversations about, what does this even mean here, and if we go through with this, what are we getting ourselves into? So
because it does include your family.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you do anything, your family is affected by that.
Absolutely.
I mean, what you pick as a profession, they're affected by it, and what you pick as far as leisure time, your kids, grow up with that. So, being more involved in the church in an area like a deacon, it's just naturally going to bring them in a little bit more than they would have normally been.
Yes.
So, whenever we talk with you talk with Belinda about it, what was the final? Okay. What do you think?
I I think we both prayed about it and just eventually got to the point where we realized if this is something that, there's a reason, there must be a reason
Yes.
that they have asked. There must be a
Yes.
reason, that maybe they see something that we didn't quite see yet. We didn't know. But
And that is a true statement in most of us, especially if you're just getting started and getting involved. When someone comes and asks you, would you do this at church, you're going, what? What? But that's true. People see things in us and other people that the person doesn't see.
Mhm.
And I think of course, your wife Belinda was just rock solid in the church, and they must have thought whatever she brings in is going to be okay.
I've been riding her coattails for almost 24 years now.
Almost
24 years next Monday.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah,
Well, good
right.
deal.
You were there.
I was there. Yes, I was. I was there. Again, another
That's
problem.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
So, how did it, becoming a deacon, how did that change your thoughts? Or was it immediate or kind of slow as you kind of learned what does it mean to be a deacon in a church?
I think it was slow. I think what was really helpful is we did go through that study.
Yes.
I can't remember what it was called now, but
Yeah.
remember the gentleman was from Cave City or had
Yes.
some Cave City
Married-
roots and
married a
lived in
girl from
Florida.
Cave City.
Yes, and then lived
Uh-huh.
in Florida. Steve, I can't remember.
I can't remember.
Anyway, doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Makes
but
me
it,
feel better. You can't remember.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
But it was
yeah.
really, really helpful to
Yeah.
go through that and learn, what it did mean to be a deacon. I guess I had in my mind that at first I thought, well, this is like the church board of directors, and he was very clear in the training, and the guys that had been doing it for a long time were also great in kind of showing us what it did mean about what our role was to be. And that was really helpful, not only to learn from him through that study, but also to learn from the other guys who've been doing it for a number of years.
Talk about that a little bit, because when they came to me about needing to add deacons, all of our deacons, almost all of them, were at least as old as my dad, and some could have been my grandfather. I mean, these guys were seasoned, but they wanted some other men to come along. How did it help, or what was the effect on you being in that group as a young man and hearing the things that they said?
I think it was definitely positive. I don't remember how many active deacons we had when I started, but I want to say 10 or 12.
There was
maybe.
12 when I came here.
Yeah.
There were 12, so it's probably 10 at least by then.
Probably. Lost a few and
Yes.
picked up a few along the way, but there was a lot of wisdom in that room,
Yes.
and a lot of life experience, and just a lot of men that you knew just took their walks with the Lord very seriously, and I could learn a lot from them. So
Yeah.
I felt a little intimidated, as a 20-something-year-old. I thought, well,
Yes.
I don't know anything.
Yes.
These guys have forgotten more than I've ever known. But it was really helpful as they kind of shepherded me.
That's what I would say. They were so generous with all of us, including me. I mean, they were generous with their time. They were generous with their compliments. And we didn't agree on everything, but we worked it through until we found a solution, a compromise. And I've appreciated that with those guys. They didn't pull rank, like we've been here this long. No, they wanted to find out what did the Lord want, what did He want done, and we would take the time to work through that. And I thought that has always been a real positive for me, seeing that happen. Sometimes I would change, sometimes they would change, or sometimes it was a blend of the two, and we'd figure it out. I know early on, we had a few kind of stressful times early on.
We did. Yeah.
And you probably thought, what have I got myself into?
It seems like we had a few within a month or two, didn't we?
Pretty early. Pretty early.
Yeah.
It got intense. A few times I can remember. I remember looking over, seeing you, to just look on your face. It was like, what am I doing here? But it's amazing to see how that works through.
It does.
And we've had to say, see you later to a lot of fine fellows.
Absolutely.
That was
Absolutely.
on that deacon ministry group. So since now they have passed, and like I say, there were 12. Well, now there's 3.
3. You can count us on one hand, and you'll have 2 fingers left over.
Yes, there's no question who's going to be here and if anybody's missing.
That's right.
Yeah. What would you say to anyone who maybe has, Jeff Jeff talked about how he felt a little leading.
Mm-hmm.
I don't guess that you did.
I don't think I did.
It was a surprise to you.
It was.
And
But then it became, the more we talked through it, the more I started and prayed through it, you kind of realize maybe there is something to this.
Okay.
You know?
so, if someone is asked
Mhm.
in any area, the first one I was asked to do was teach middle school.
Mm-hmm.
That's before I realized that they just needed new meat, is what they need. They just get the
Right.
young ones and throw them in there, or
That's-
somebody's got to take care of these kids.
Right.
But no, it is something when the church comes and says, we see you as fitting in this spot.
Mhm.
What would you say to someone who is struggle with that, or I'm not a deacon, I'm not deacon material? What
Right.
would you, how would you,
I think just that
Encourage that.
that's where I was too.
You felt the same
I felt
way.
the same way. I thought this can't be right. But then the more you like I said, you think about it, you pray about it, you start to realize, well, if there is something that somebody sees, then the Lord has put that there, and He's given you that skill set or temperament or whatever it is that somebody sees, and He didn't ask us to be like anybody else, but He just asked us to be obedient. And when I felt like that's what He was calling me to do,
Mhm.
it seemed like the right thing,
Mhm.
to be obedient and whatever that next step was. So
okay,
I would just say, if somebody does have those thoughts or those questions, just to prayerfully consider that and be open to what the Lord might be saying.
okay. Well, that leads into another thing as you talk about this. And you don't go into specifics, but has there ever been a time that you thought, oh, I shouldn't have done this, and you question yourself, or
No, not a time that I thought I shouldn't have done this. Maybe times when we always have times when we think, I'm really not worthy of this. It's not about that. It's about just the service and serving the church. But at times when you're going through difficulties, maybe you feel like, surely there's somebody who could do this better than I could.
yes,
So
yes.
I guess we all have those moments.
We have
but,
those moments.
but never a time when I've regretted, following through on that.
Well, that's good to hear, because everything we do at times we all think, am I doing the right thing, or
Absolutely.
maybe I should have chose better, or that kind of
Mhm.
thing. But ultimately you get down to it. What does the Lord want us to do, and keep doing it. Deacon Philip has been known as our deacon of technology. Anybody in church that has trouble with their computer, they call Philip. So he's the deacon of technology, and so you've helped a lot of people get their Facebook straightened out and their computer
I
straightened
think
out.
my favorite story is the time that Joan Garrison called me up to her house, and she was having issues with her computer. Come to find out, her cat had walked across the keyboard a few times, and I don't know what the cat typed when the cat walked across the keyboard, but the computer didn't like it.
The
So
computer
we had
didn't
to-
like it, so-
We had to do a little work on that.
And it's like that each one of our guys, whatever they either were good at or felt led to, that's kind of been the direction they've gone in.
And it is interesting, when you look at the three of us that are still actively serving, but even as you look back through the deacons that have been here, just that I've seen in the last, well, even before I became a deacon in the last 24, 25 years, everybody approaches it differently.
Yes.
Everybody's got something different they bring to the table,
Mhm.
and I think that's what makes it work.
Mhm.
Just like a family or any good organization, you've got to have. If we were all the same, some of us would be unnecessary.
Unnecessary,
Yeah. So
unnecessary.
and I think that's something else maybe for anybody who might be considering this. You don't have to be like anybody else. You just bring what you bring.
There you go.
Yeah.
Something that Jeff pointed out, and we've talked about this many times, it is amazing how with the different men that were on from the different backgrounds, some had business backgrounds, some farming backgrounds, you've been in education your whole time. Jeff worked in a factory. Ricky has worked in factories. He's done all. But even those guys that are no longer with us, everybody came in with a different skill set, like you said. But it's amazing how the deacons work together.
Yeah.
It's not that we didn't have times where we disagreed. It's not times we had to work things through. I can never remember a time though that we were stalled.
No.
Or someone just dug their heels in.
No.
I mean, I've always been thankful for that. How it's been one of the blessings for me of being here is working with our deacons. The way they have worked through situations, worked through problems, and come up with solutions.
Right. Things don't always happen fast, because there are there's a lot of things to consider sometimes.
Yes.
But we are. I always feel like at the end of the day we're on the same page, and we're always moving forward together, and just always seeking what the Lord would have us to do, and how that applies here at Horse Cave Baptist Church.
I guess one other thing I'd like to know, how has being a deacon, how's that affected home life? How's it affected work life? Of course, you've been in music for years, taught music and been involved in our music ministry. You've taught Sunday school classes from preschool, right now through baby boomers.
Right.
You've been involved in, and Belinda and everything Belinda's involved in, you were involved in. Basically that's Bible school. Name it all. But of all of those, how has being a deacon affected maybe overall your life?
I think it just makes you more aware. If I were to go out and do something ridiculous, then, they wouldn't. I always think about, people wouldn't say, well, Philip went and did something silly. They'd say, that deacon that guy from the church. So you feel a little pressure of the association of, like it or not, we're kind of tied together here.
Yes.
So
Yes.
If I do something, that can reflect on the church and vice versa. So.
Right.
I think that's something I felt. I feel like that's something that Belinda has felt as well, and probably the boys as well.
Is it a burden, or is it, how would you describe
no,
it? You don't
not,
really feel
no,
like,
I don't think so.
It's a burden.
No, just an awareness, maybe.
An awareness.
An awareness.
Okay.
It's never right. Just something that you have that thought maybe before you make a decision about how's this going to reflect on my family, how's this going to reflect on our church. So
of course, your kids, they've known nothing different than this.
That's right.
Since you had, and sometimes we would kid around in the deacons meeting because inevitably, every one of the young guys that we brought on, there was some deacons meeting they had to miss because a child was being born. I'm taking every one of them. And we would always say, you just can't get commitment anymore.
No.
You just can't get guys that are committed anymore to come to deacons meetings. They're off having babies, So it's just been neat seeing all the different age groups that came together to make that a strong ministry body, really, the deacons. So it's been that's been the very encouraging part of it, and I'm glad it's been encouraging for you. And
definitely has.
And now we're from up 12 down to 3. Do you have any concerns going into the future?
Sure. I think.
Okay.
I think I may be starting to feel what you mentioned. What some of the guys when you came had mentioned, that not there was more then, but they were up in age, and we may Jeff and Ricky and I may be a little bit younger than they are, but not too far behind
Not
them.
too far behind.
And I just think the more ideas we have when we discuss things, the more people we have listening to what's going on in the church. I just think that would definitely be a positive thing for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the more that you can spread that leadership view out, the better it is for the whole church.
Right.
So, okay. Well, thank you for 20 years.
Well, it's hard to believe.
I know it is hard to believe.
Time flies when you're having fun.
When you're having fun, that's
That's
right. But appreciate you, Belinda, the boys, your whole family. You've been always involved, always concerned, and always leading, oftentimes by example. And if no one else appreciates it, I do. Okay.
Well, I certainly appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Well, good.
It's always been a great joy, and like I said, something I've never regretted. So
Good. A little surprised, but not regretted.
maybe surprised, but not regretted. That's right.
Okay. All right. Well, let's have prayer together. Father, I thank you for the day. I thank you for these 20 years that Philip, Belinda, and their whole family has been in that position of leadership, responsibility, have realized the calling you have on all of us is to be obedient to whatever you tell us and whatever you show that we need to do. Father, we find that obedience is really where the blessings are. And sometimes we need encouragement, sometimes we need examples. And I thank you for the encouragement and example that they have been for me and for the entire church. So help us if we continue to stay obedient. In Jesus' name, amen.